sorry.
No, that's fine. First, thanks for the invitation. Thanks a lot. Also because apart from my, let's say, institutional role, that is the vice rector, this is the key topic of my research, so I'm very happy to be here. The title is related to one of the main topics of the seminar. And somehow we have this big challenge to get in a suitable number of years this big dream of, say, zero energy building. Of course, it is a path. We cannot think about having this immediately. And I had the possibility to work a lot on this topic in research, but also with the European Commission, because as now I'm president of RESSEEPE, I've been in the board lots of years. And this is the federation of the European Federation of the HVAC system sector, so we work a lot with the European Commission in establishing the new directive and the new path toward high efficient buildings. So, okay, as we know very well, now we have in the situation where we are dealing with the second recast of the Energy Performance of Building Directive. But I think that we had, of course, in the very beginning of this century, an important mission of the European Commission where we set building as a priority in order to improve our capability to reduce CO2. But I think that the main directive was the one that was the first recast, the one in 2010, that put in the reality our main focus, that was that if we want to score this activity related to drive the energy sector related to building up to high efficient building, we have to think together economy and energy. This is the main issue that we worked on during the definition of this second directive. As we know very well, if we can see the effect at national level of this kind of directive, we have to say that we are not so happy, because the directive is put the vision that you have to have the transposition at national level. And in Europe, as you know very well, it's quite an heterogeneous situation. So it is not easy to have, first of all, the same approach in all the countries. And then the situation country by country is very difficult, both from a technical point of view, but of course also from the economical point of view. And so the answer of the market could be and is in the reality very different. But if we go back to the nearly zero energy building concept, it was introduced by the recast, and I think that this introduction gave us the possibility to open a new vision in analyzing the path toward this zero energy building. In my opinion, the key point of the recast was to set some very clear steps in designing the buildings. And when I'm teaching this kind of topic, I have to say that at the very beginning, when we start to design the building, we have some points that drive our concept. First of all, we should emphasize the reduction of the energy demand. That is to do our best in order to reduce the energy demand of the building itself. That is what typically in architecture is called as all the passive system that we have around the building. Then we have the second step that is let's say mostly related to my background, that is to use high efficient technologies. I'm a mechanical engineer, so let's say all the technologies that are inside the building and around the building. That is to reduce the energy requirement of the building. And then, as we cannot think about having zero as energy demand, we have to supply the residual requirement, energy requirement of the building through renewable energy sources. So from the design point of view, it's very clear. And through this step, we can drive the building up to a position where we can really reduce the use of fossil fuel of the building. High energy performance, almost zero energy need, 100% renewable energy sources, let's say. There is another step important, that when I see zero energy need, well, we have to think about what is really zero, because we have some energy use that we cannot cancel, of course, because they are part of our lifestyle. Especially we have all the electrical requirements, so when we set zero, we are saying that we try to reduce as much as possible all the energy needs that are related to create a comfortable environment in the building that is typically related to heating, cooling, ventilation. We can speak about that because air movement and mechanical ventilation is really a key issue. And another important issue that is related, for example, to domestic hot water production, of course, it's one of fixed value. We can improve our capability to produce the renewable energy sources, but in somehow we can decrease the energy need. We cannot think about having zero energy need on the building. As we know very well, the target is very, and now we are speaking also about public buildings. The next year is a very, very challenging year because we should enter this kind of concept in retrofitting and designing the new public building. I have to say that our public sector is not so in line with this target, not only in Italy, all over Europe. And consider that the vision of the Europe is really ambitious because we are targeting in our roadmap up to 2050, 90% of CO2 reduction in buildings. That is really challenging. So, okay, we put the target, then let's say, let's do our best. This kind of topic is also not so clear in its implementation. Okay, first of all, now, especially we have different approach in US, China, Europe, India, related to what we want to score. We introduced this concept of net zero energy building. We introduced the concept of zero energy building. We introduced the concept of zero carbon building. We are introducing lots of concepts. But at the end, I think that what is really important is to have this final mission, that is to increase the energy performance of the building. One of the key aspects is related, and now I'm speaking about the design of the building, the reality. When we design the building, we have to think about what we really want to reduce. Because from the general point of view, there are different targets that we can score. One of the main targets is related to balance the heat generation and the heat demand. That is, I have an energy demand in the building and I try as much as possible to balance this demand through an on-site production. There is what is called the site energy balance. That is typically what we think about when we are designing a building. We have some kilowatt hour of energy requirement and we try to balance this kilowatt hour through site production. But as we know very well, all the legislation is related to, let's say, primary energy, source energy. That is something that is very difficult to understand from the market point of view, because it's, let's say, a very, for us that we are technicians, it's clear. If you are researchers and scientists, it's very clear. From the market point of view, it's very difficult to understand. Also because we don't pay primary energy. And typically for the market, the key driver is related to the balance related to the energy cost. For my wife, was absolutely clear that to have, we will see, to have or to design our new building, that of course should be a nearly zero energy building, means that the energy cost of the building should be equal to zero. So the perception of the target is very difficult to understand and clarify according to the different people that are thinking about this concept. Then we have, and the balance related to energy emission is now the target fixed by the European Commission. We are speaking about having a CO2 reduction due to the building sector. That is something that is of course different from the other two key issues. Also because, as we know very well, in source energy we introduce factors that are related to the energy policy of the country itself, so it's very difficult to generalize. And for example, in the International Energy Agency, one of the key activities is to try to balance from the political point of view, the different perception of the different countries according to fixing the conversion factor. So this topic is quite important to clarify at scientific level, but I think it is so important to clarify at practical level if we want really to have an implementation of this kind of concept, especially in the public sector. Here we tried, at least in Europe and in US, to have a similar way in reproducing the energy vector through the building. This is an important issue, to have common language and common way to represent things in order to put the boundary of the analysis in the same point. This is another important issue, it's more scientific, but this is very important if we want to share and to get the same results. Because typically, also now, if you see in literature, you see lots of different papers related to explanation or what is a zero energy building, or some experiences, case studies related to zero energy building, but typically they have different boundaries of analysis. So the comparison is really different. Okay, in reality, what is typically new in a high-performing building? Typically, what's new is that we tried to reduce a lot. I'm speaking about only total space heating, but in somehow to reduce this big amount that in a typical building is the big amount of energy required for space heating. This was the first approach all over Europe, both in North country and in Mediterranean country. We focused a lot at the very beginning in reducing the share of heating energy demand. Both in Mediterranean country, so the first focus was to increase a lot insulation. If you see, all the mandatory activity we had was mainly to increase insulation. Up to the concept of passive house, that was, as you know very well, created in Germany, then spread all over Europe with very, very dangerous effect, especially in Mediterranean countries. Okay? But what is for me really interesting from, let's say, the designing point of view is that in our new building, the amount of domestic hot water that is from the energy need fixed, almost fixed, is now comparable with the other energy use for climatization. This, from the designing point of view, create a new approach, because now the priority is to create an efficient way to manage domestic hot water. That is something new, very interesting, if we have time to do this. So I tried here from our point of view to put some key issue. So big reduction of heating loads, that is to reduce the nominal power of the heating system. Then if we have very small load, we have to be very reactive. The large share of domestic hot water. The other thing is that to shorten a heating period. If you shorten the heating period, of course, the payback period, if you want to invest a lot in the heating plant, it is very difficult to have a suitable payback period. And then this is a big problem now all over Europe, overheating problem. All over Europe, from north to south, especially to south, but to try to emphasize the fact that we have now to deal with the other problem, that is to cool the buildings. And before cooling the building, it is better to apply through passive solutions. Okay. This is the main part, the second main part of the presentation, but okay, there is a design approach, but I think what was really new in approaching a nearly zero energy building was the introduction in the same analysis of two important indicators. An economical indicator, we introduced the so-called global cost, but what is important for me is to introduce an economical indicator together with an energy indicator. Typically, we used global cost and primary energy. So the primary energy indicator, as it is the, let's say, main indicator that is used to classify the building, and we use here the so-called global cost. Why we use the global cost? Because we tried in a quite simplified way to have the possibility to think about all the costs over the life of the building, starting from the initial cost, that is the investment cost, up to the final value of the building. So, in somehow, we said that if we want to really to score the goal of high-performing building, we have to balance this trend. So we have not to emphasize from the very beginning the energy performance if the market is not able to get this energy performance in the reality. That is, we don't have to push the market up to A+++++ building if the market is not able to get this building. And as we know very well, this was a very weak point in the first directive, because all the country pushed a lot to have a very efficient building without any answer from the market. In fact, the number of efficient building is very low. The market of retrofitting building is very low in comparison to the potentiality. Okay? So, this is the balance. Of course, we try to understand the investment cost, energy cost, maintenance cost, replacement cost, final value. I always say to my student, what the engineering and the architectural faculty, that economical evaluation of project is one of the key issues now in if we want to understand the energy tendencies of the building market. The general results that we want to score at European level was that if we are able to set at the very, okay, what is the key issue? Is that if here in this curve we have always a minimum. This minimum, or around this minimum, we have the so-called cost optimal range. The cost optimal range is the good trade-off between investment cost and operational cost. Here we have the investors that I call, typically I call them green investors, that are investors that would like to invest a lot, they have a very, very clear objective to have a very high-performing building, and investment cost is not a problem for them. That is, bank has to give you lots of money. So, let's say, frankly speaking, is 5% of the market. Here we have the good trade-off, okay, between investment and operational cost. That is over the period of analysis that, according to the European Commission, is 30 years for a residential building and 20 for the other. If you speak to an investor, there are too long period. But anyway, you have this balance between, these are what I call the wise investors, okay? Here, okay, there is a big potentiality of the market that is to try to emphasize step-by-step improvement of the energy performance of the building through investment that are not so big, that can be, let's say, spread through a very wide number of people. This is very important from the energy policy, because we are speaking, because if I could be tomorrow and one of the advisors of the energy policy also in our region, first of all, I would like, if I want to reduce highly the CO2 emission, I should have the possibility to increase as much as possible this kind of market, and also this one, because this is what we also in our region did in some specific activity of our region, but were related to 5-6 buildings over the whole building stock of our region. So they are good extreme example, but they are not able to enter the market. The idea of the European Commission was to start in a situation where the optimal, the cost optimal is around here, but through the improvement and through the cost reduction of the technology, over the years, this point moved little by little up to what we typically call near zero energy building, that typically is, let's say, less than 30-25 kilowatt hour per square meter of primary energy, typically in our minds. So it's a path. The procedure is very interesting also for a designer. So it's not only interesting from the scientific point of view, we did lots of publication and that was fine for me, but also from the very practical point of view, because if a designer is able to use this kind of procedure, is able also to show to the investor different options according to different costs and different goals. So the idea is always, when we are thinking about retrofitting the building, to think about different combination of building envelope energy efficient measures, different combination of building system, HVAC system plus electrical system, energy efficient measure, and integration of renewable energy sources. Here you can see the path that we discussed at the very beginning. Reduce the energy need, improving the energy efficiency using the renewable energy source. At the end we have packages, and at the end we have cost optimality. So we have the combination of different possible activity. Each of them has an effect in terms of energy and cost, and at the very end we have something like that. It's very practical. I did it for the municipality of Istanbul for retrofitting the building stock. Was very. Today we have not the possibility to speak about a lot of how to create the so-called building types. That is another interesting issue, that is how to make a cluster of buildings, that is the concept of archetype buildings, that is very interesting from the scientific point of view. But let's say, let's consider this as representative of a part of our building stock. Each point, sorry. Okay, this point is the initial point where is the reference building, so that has only cost related to operation over 30 years. All the other points are points that are related to the retrofitting action on the building, related to different combination of the efficient measures that were defined before. And these are different targets of energy reduction with respect to the reference building. This is reality, so as you can see, if at the very beginning the energy performance is very low, to get 50% it means that I'm moving from 400 to 200. That from the general point of view seems to be very, very low as a final result, but from the relative point of view it's very high. If you see this as a system, it's very high. And this is the so-called cost optimal range that is related to the number of possible options of retrofitting where I have the good trade-off between investment and primary energy. I just go very briefly to a very practical case study, that is my house, to understand that if we want to speak about one thing, you have to manage. But what was very interesting was that the investor, my wife, was really wise in managing about economical issues. So the idea was to start with a rural building, and we tried first of all to have an all-electric building. That is, in my opinion, because you know very well, the tendency at European level is to, especially for building for single houses, is to move from gas to electricity, also for all the conditioning of the building. So I think it is one of the first one in Italy. It was the first one. But what was important, in my opinion, is to introduce the cost optimal concept to clarify to my wife what was the target that we have to, let's say, obtain and what she has to invest. That was the most important. Okay, so very briefly, I approached the problem in a very practical way. So I tried to create a quite clear matrix where I put here different solutions in terms of HVACC. Cortao means Corgnati Taurino, so to be very. Taurino is my wife, so because we are working together. So this is a very basic solution. So Radian system. I have no time to enter in detail why Radian, because she wants. I had no negotiation about that. I don't think this was the best solution, but as you know, architecture, the architect and the investor has a very predominant role in this negotiation. So it's a negotiation, but at the end it's fine. So Radian panel, a condensing boiler. A split system for cooling, natural ventilation, solar panels for both domestic hot water and photovoltaic panel. Moving here, I introduce one of the key issues, that is the use of mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. This is a very important issue, but it changes also the way by which you use the building. So we introduce also other important issues related to the user behavior and so on. Here we move to condensing boiler to heat pump, water-to-water heat pump, very efficient. And here water-to-water heat pump for heating and cooling, together with mechanical ventilation. insulation. And here, different level of insulation related to different standards, related both to the opaque envelope and to the transparent envelope. At the end, okay, simulation, okay, papers, but at the end, this was the most important goal to discuss. First of all, I demonstrated to my wife that investing over a long period of life together, because this was a prerequisite, because okay, at least 30 years, the investment we can get with the same global cost and a building with 80 kilowatt-hour per square meter of primary energy or nearly zero. Of course, this is related to a higher investment cost. This is related to a quite low investment cost. But what was really interesting is that we can get here a very efficient retrofitted building that is around 35 now is 11 kilowatt-hour per square meter, using typical technologies. There is, let's say, a water-to-water heat pump, mechanical ventilation, and 7 kilowatt peak of photovoltaic. Just to be clear, the investment cost was a little bit less than 2,000 euro per square meter. But I have to say that interior design was higher. So let's consider also this. So the selection of lighting, as you know very well. So you have also to think about that. At the end, we did it. I don't know. What was important for me was to demonstrate that you can also have some very good results. Then we have an extension of these results. So if we want to have a quite good high-performing video, this is around 40, you can get it also with an investment cost that is around 1,500. That is quite a good reference in our market to have a high-performing video. So at the very end, I have to say that the path is difficult. We have to clarify to the investor what is the path that he has to follow, but for sure there are no technological problem to do this, and also if you approach in the right way, also a very clear approach in terms of economy, so the market can have a good result from that. So thanks a lot.